Yes, welcome to this session. We are talking about the effects, the right to freedom from toxic, unhealthy, and incompatible marriage and relationship. This is the volume one. The first case scenario today, among a plethora of causative factors, the toxic, incompatible, and unhealthy relationship. We are taking the first case scenario on perspective disorder. What is perspective disorder? This case scenario gives you the picture of what we mean by perspective disorder. 3 years ago, 2 friends of mine visited me for advice. The problems at hand concern one of them. They are both highly well-placed ladies in the society. They are women of honor and claim very intelligent lawyers. The first one, Mrs. V, who is a staff in the National Parliament, in the National Assembly in Nigeria, likes to quote scriptures and give mini sermons. She had told Mrs. M that marriage is for better or for worse, that since her husband had asked her to choose between accepting a United Nations scholarship offer for doctoral research fellowship that was accompanied with a well-paid income, that Mrs. M had no choice but to shun the doctoral research fellow offer to keep her marriage. Mrs. M's dream has always been to work in the United Nations system since her undergraduate era. She has been passionate about working with the United Nations system. She actually chose to undertake a master's degree program in international law and diplomacy as added advantage to her dream pursuit, although she had a well-paid job serving as a manager in an oil servicing company in the southern part of Nigeria. She never felt fulfilled. Opportunity then presented itself. She won a doctoral research fellowship in the United Nations, offered by the United Nations system, with much welfare package incomparable to her present job, instant job, and complementing her dreams and passion over time. They had she together with the husband had a 7-year-old son. She discussed with the husband that she was traveling with a 7-year-old son, but the husband objected that the son was too young to be exposed to foreign culture. He insisted that it was wrong to train a child of 7 years in the United States soil. Maybe the husband had a good point at that. Mrs. M suggested to keep the son in a mother or mother-in-law's care, and both mothers agreed to take care of the son until he returns from a studies and fellowship program or the son relocates. The husband still objected. The problem was not the son. It was about Mrs. M leaving Nigeria for the United States when such plan was not initiated by the husband. Mrs. M then suggested they could all travel to New York, and the husband, being a professional, will find a job there. but the husband insisted that Mrs. M must choose between the marriage and the doctoral research fellowship program. Having assimilated advice of Mrs. V, which was in support of Mrs. M's husband's position, Mrs. M was not convinced. She told Mrs. V she was coming to solicit my advice. Having listened to the issue and evaluated Mrs. M's husband's perspective, this was my advice. I asked Mrs. M to repeat and affirm that the husband asked her to choose between a marriage and a career. She said yes, and I asked her to tell the husband. I advised her to tell the husband to choose between her and his decision. She asked why. I retorted, because you are in a wrong marriage. A real marriage is supposed to be a partnership, a friendship, and not slavery. No one is doing anyone a favor by marrying him or her. Marriage is partnership, a contract between two persons, a man and woman who love themselves and agreed to form a family. Your husband's action, I told Mrs. M, and command is a breach of your fundamental human rights. I refer Mrs. M to the provisions of the United Nations Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, adopted in 1979, and other international human rights law, which her husband grossly violated. I also told Mrs. M that I just realized that she married, and was unfortunate, she married a man of low potential. And when a woman marries a man of low potential, she will definitely go down to zero potential, because in nature, a woman cannot be above the man. In extension of energy, husband and wife complement each other without being above each other. My advice to Mrs. M was to choose a career and leave the marriage if the husband insists on the solutions of marriage on grounds of her choosing a career advancement. Then Mrs. Fee jumped into my advisory resourcefulness. Mrs. Fee told Mrs. M not to take my advice. According to Mrs. M, it is unbiblical to divorce except on ground of adultery. She quoted a verse in the Bible that a man shall leave his father and mother and cleave to a woman, and they shall become one blood and one flesh. And that what God has joined together, let no man put asunder. And I told Mrs. M that the Bible did not refer to one blood and one flesh in the context of biological DNA, because a man and a woman can never be one blood and one flesh in the context of biological DNA, seeing they are from different families altogether. That passage refers to the child that the man and the woman brings up together. I also quoted a passage in the Bible credited to the greatest master of all time, Jesus Christ, that says, if your right hand cause thee to stumble, cut it off, and cast it from thee, for it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, than the whole body go to hell. I told Mrs. M that any partner, marital or mere relationship or courtship, that stand against your relationship with God, that is your spirituality. Stand against your spirituality, that's your relationship with God, or stands against your career progress, or stand against your relationship with your biological aboriginal family, such like your mother, is the right hand that causes you to stumble, and such is an incompatible marriage or relationship infused in perspective disorder. Then I asked Mr. M, what if you sacrifice the doctoral fellowship program for marriage, and in less than 3 years the marriage still collapsed? Then Mrs. M said, God forbid. That cannot happen. She has to obey her husband. A few months ago, Mrs. M contacted me. She was deeply depressed and asked what the matter was. She said she needed a good divorce lawyer. I quickly referred her to a friend whose expertise is concentrated in divorce matter. She asked, why didn't I care to know what happened? I retorted that 3 years ago when I tried to counsel her, I knew for certain that our marriage would someday collapse. Not to her fault, but that was as a result of a perspective disorder, which makes a wrong marriage. I had no interest in listening to her, but she managed to tell me that the husband impregnated her best friend's daughter, and they all conspired to destroy her life. That the husband was the first to file for divorce, and she is going to be a defendant. And the husband was coming after her properties. When I look at the scenario, I have sympathy for Mrs. M, for she listened to Mrs. Fee. When your mind joins forces with the mind of others, it creates a phenomenon called synergisms of hope and expectation that beclouds your sense of evaluation towards reality. That is the typical issue that affected Mrs. M. Mrs. M lost the doctoral research fellowship program sponsored by the United Nations system with well-paid income because she wanted to keep her marriage and listen to the scripture of Mrs. Fee to satisfy the marriage in the context of the religious mythology. Now the situation is, who lost at the end? This is one of the impacts of incompatible and unhealthy relationships. In the Western culture, the Christian Bible is considered to be one of the most ancient of the extant history books, which has continued to serve as a reference work for humanity that expects protection against profanity. No religious or philosophical thought has been able to disprove the concept of marriage and relationship between two opposite genders as stipulated in the Bible. In Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, biblical Genesis is recorded. And God said, let us make man in our own image and likeness, male and female created ye them. Science in all times has all agreed to the fact that every material manifestation there must be a union of positive and negative polarities or vibrations or forces. Electricity and humanity are typical examples of such nature processes, which requires a combination of positive and negative vibration, a duality manifesting the third dimension of evolutions and continuation of all nature. Both material and spiritual scientists hold that creation in its entirety being the work of a universal intelligence that has not, in all textures, be without a duality form manifesting a third dimension. That in every aspect of creation there is a positive and negative polarities. These conceive the rationale behind the union of man and woman, which in legal terms is called marriage or nuptial partnership. Science has proven that creation will be stagnant, or humanity may not continue without a union of man and woman, and that man is incapable of determining the legal restriction of the force that guide or propel such union. Here come the terms of love relationship. Nevertheless, in social life, the discontents of our age are sharply aligned by the emerging ideologies and idiosyncrasies with which men seek to instill the clamoring of their own souls. In running the affairs of love, I've been witness to have sunk some individual personalities to death knell of human hopes and unrest. These new realities, of course, have made modern relationships saddled with disillusions instead of joy and deepened by a dilemma of two worlds in every individual personality decision about whom or she may choose as a life partner, inflamed by the insecurities of the intervening incidents that obstruct peace of mind and finding confirmations of true love as the cases fairly at a bleak, uncertain future. The patterns of fear is now a familiar one to every man and woman ever since the beginning of time, alone lies in the contemporary era where love has been largely replaced by selfishness. The key word you take from this particular issue, as we will discuss in details about the effects of perspective disorder in relationship, is the choice in a life partner is a very sensitive issue. And the rights of every individual in any relationship is both legally and spiritually guaranteed. And everyone, man and woman, are of equal polarities, and no one has the right to destroy the potentials, the joy, the peace, and the good of another. Because marriage, though is a very important institution, is not slavery. Now we will discuss in details in our next lecture what comes after this kind of scenario, as we will have other scenarios to bring up to you. What would you do if you were Mrs. M in choosing between the marriage and your career prospect? Did Mrs. N, who has who asked Mrs. N to shunt this doctoral fellowship offer for marriage, right? Was my advice to Mrs. M that she should ask the husband to choose between her and his decision, right? I will want to have your view in this issue. Follow me at Cyprian Edward-Ekpo Dialysis and Treatise. Get to the questionnaire section and comment section and drop your view on this issue, as we will discuss again on Monday from this point, before I offer my final opinion on this very issue. Thank you, and God bless you.